Today, I have another special guest with me, writer and director Sparky Tehnsuko. How are you doing, Sparky?
Doing very well, actually. As I was just kind of saying to you before, amazingly jet lagged, but otherwise, I'm feeling very good.
Yeah, and Sparky, that's a cool name. Is that your real name?
It is as much as I want it to be.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I'll be
I mean,
cagey
it
about my
sticks.
name.
It
Say
sticks.
again? Oh, yeah, no, that's one good part of it is just being able to introduce yourself and not have people say, "Who was that again?"
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
But today, you guys, we're going to be talking about his latest short film titled Villain, and it's starring Bella Ramsey and Isla Gee. I saw this film, I want to say maybe like a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Um, and it was very interesting. It was kind of dark, kind of intense, and so I really was really curious to talk to you about it, to get your, uh, just to kind of pick your brain about it and to find out what the concept came from and all that kind of stuff. But before we jump into the film, I did want to know a little bit about your background. So, how you got
Sure.
into filmmaking, and is short stories and short films your preferred method of filmmaking?
So I'll start with the start there. I got into short filmmaking or filmmaking in general immediately just after university. I worked at cinemas and things when I was younger and wanted to get into filmmaking because I realized that that was something that I really loved as an art form.
Mhm.
And so I went to university and studied film studies. Making a couple of short films as student films while I was there, and then decided to carry it on after I'd graduated. I basically moved immediately to London because that's where the work is, um, and bought myself a shoddy little camera to try and make some things with, and just by myself or with my friends, like no professionalism whatsoever, just kind of figuring out how to do things on the way. And yeah, so in terms of um, getting more into the industry, though, then um, I ended up actually being an assistant director in the film industry,
Hmm.
which is kind of an organizational part of it. It's just whenever the director says, "Okay, this is what I want to do right now," then it's the assistant directors who run around and speak to all of the different departments and say, "Okay, this is what we're doing, so this is how we do it." Blah blah blah. Just organizing as to the whims of the creatives. And so that kind of taught me everything about being on a set, about general departments of the industry, things like that. And in the meantime, I spent many, many years while I was doing that, just working other kind of jobs while making my own films, still with these shoddy cameras and with increasingly or decreasingly many friends, and trying to increase the amount of actual professionals who were working on the things with us. So as we as we've kind of been making short films for the last, it's been over a decade now. We have been everything from just like something that I might have just made literally myself with a couple of actors and done all the camera work and all of the editing and everything myself, and then it is me just doing a lot of things where I'm spread thinly and not doing anything very well,
Hmm.
to getting to the point of villain where we have very specific people doing very specific jobs and doing them all well, which means that I'm able to write or direct or anything and just kind of focus my attention on those things and trying to do those particularly well. But yeah, in terms of whether short film is my preferred form um, of art, I guess. It's just what's available to me most at the moment. I would like to go into longer forms of things. There are still a fair few ideas that I've had kind of written down for a while, which I think still would just be short films.
Hmm.
But yeah, to be honest, I would. There's a lot of ideas out there in the world that other people have had that I'd love to collaborate with, and there's ideas that I've had that I'd love to get from the page to the screen. But the main thing is just what I'm able to do at any given time. And at this point in time, or up until this point in time at least, then shorts has been kind of the main thing that I've been able to say, yes, I can accomplish that.
Okay, got it. And it's interesting that you said you were an AD because I feel like I'm not sure if it's the same way in the UK, but I think a lot of times here in America, a lot of people who get into filmmaking, they start off doing those types of positions, and a lot of people are like production and
Yeah.
even just being like a mailer in the writing room, and so they make their way up into the up until they're a director or a writer or anything like that. So I imagine that that was good practice for you.
It has been, yeah. So, and it is very much the same in the UK, where there's lots of other people who make films now that I have worked as an AD or in some other below the line capacity sometime in the past. In fact, even our film played at HollyShorts, and there was another film called Free by
Mhm.
Ashish Gadvi, who is someone that I literally just worked in an office with a few years ago, and we were both on Disney's The Artemis Fowl.
Okay.
And so we were just working in a very office job, not doing anything particularly creative there, but obviously both having aspirations otherwise. And
Hmm.
here we are just a few years later, and both of our films played in the same festival. Yeah, it's a great way to get the kind of experience that you need to figure out how to really properly do things. Because, as I say, I did do a lot of things when I was like a student or immediately after I was a student, and there's a lot that I really had no idea how to do. I really didn't know how one particular department would reflect the work of another or add to it or take away from it, etc. So it's really good to learn what kind of complements different parts of the crew can pay one another, and it allows you to create a sense of where the trust needs to go, really, rather than just kind of trying to keep it all to yourself and think, oh, I'm the only one who knows what I'm doing, so I'll just try and keep it close to my chest. You finally do kind of get, oh, they know what I'm doing, and they know what they're doing, and I can just kind of say what I want, and I can just trust that they'll just do it correctly because they're good at their jobs and things. So yeah, it's a really good thing to get some work as an AD or in production, just generally as kind of a runner, enabling you to get a little bit of experience with how the industry works and what your role as a director might be. If you're looking at a director doing their work, you can think, if I were in that position, this is kind of the way that I might need to do it.
Yeah, and I feel like you gain so much respect for the other departments because you really see like all the work it takes just to make one short film or just to make one TV episode. And I think that's what I find so fascinating about filmmaking, like all these people coming together to do their job, and then we get to see the end result of it. Like we just get to sit back and enjoy it, but there's so much work that goes into it.
Yeah, no, there's so much time spent on it, and that was a big thing as well. Is just realizing how much time goes into each little thing. There's some days where there's been just kind of one setup where everyone has been putting their all in, sorting out the lights, doing everything with costumes, everything, just kind of getting into the position, getting ready, and then we'll spend days filming it over and over again from different angles with slight variations and whatever. And then we'll finally get to see the film or the TV show and things, and then we'll see that it's only in there for like a few seconds or a minute or something like that. But it's a very significant thing that we know that if it didn't get made to the quality that it was, then it would have not worked in the story
Right.
or something. So you just kind of realize that there's some things that you can spend a lot of time on, and you just really have to get right for the benefit of the audience, for the benefit of the film or the TV show as a general thing. But seeing how long, for example, TV shows get to be made, like every season of TV is so much longer than you may expect that it takes to get made. Like
Mhm.
I just finished one that I probably shouldn't be talking about, but I just finished a show for Amazon Studios that started filming in, I think, October and just finished like towards the um, end of June or beginning of July. So
Mhm.
huge number of months where everyone's just kind of constantly going from location to location, to studio. Art departments are building up sets here, there, and everywhere, and all have to be in time for when the camera finally makes it to there. And then it all just gets thrown into editing and VFX and everything. And it's just such a huge machine. And it's good to see, like I say, it's good to see how it all works at large scales as well as at small scales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then getting into your short film Villain, if you don't mind, just kind of explaining the concept, because I'm not even sure, honestly, if I fully grasp the concept. So I wanted you to kind of like fill in the blanks for me and for anybody else who was able to screen it at Holly Shorts. And then also, how did you direct Bella Ramsey, and how did you explain it to them so that they understood the character and the film as a whole?
Okay, so to start with, sorry, I've just gone on to what you were saying about Bella, and I've forgotten what you started with.
Oh no, just the concept of villain,
Oh,
and,
just the
and
concept,
where
yeah.
the idea came from.
Sure. So the concept is basically that a young woman who is there's no dialogue in the film, but the credits are written with her name as Georgia.
Mhm.
Opens the film with her family at her home having been destroyed, and then takes the kind of not very wise decision to seek out revenge against this massive monstrous dragon that is responsible for it. And then once she's gotten into the dragon's lair, it, before she finds the dragon in there, she actually manages to find that there is a tiny child living in the cave as well, and then has to reckon with what that means for her actions as well as for her relationships with the dragon and her family, basically. There's some things that I don't really want to go too specific on, but it is very much based on an idea, well, on an incident, an actual thing that happened within my family.
Oh, okay.
So it's very much shrouded in metaphor, but I can suffice to say, like, the dragon is based on a person, and
Mhm.
the whole thing is an area of conflict that happened, and there's some real people in the mix. But it's the whole film is generally an idea uh, about vengeance and about broken families and
Mhm.
about the perpetuation of broken families by
Okay.
those who have been wronged will wrong others, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of kind of moral quandary in what Bella's character does in order to do what's best for this child that they found in the cave, and at the same time reckoning with the rage that they have um, going in there and everything that they carry with them, and being able to let go of things in the past or not
Mhm.
being able to let go. But yeah, the way that I managed to direct Bella about this was that so this was all largely developed during the pandemic. Actually, it's how we got a lot of things that we managed to get in the film, was just the availability of people while everyone was in lockdown.
Mhm.
And we had a million Zoom calls throughout the development, and several Zoom calls obviously with the cast as well. So I got on a fairly specific call with Bella, and then just kind of said to them, I'd like to tell you the personal story of what this really means to me, what all the metaphor is.
Mhm.
And then I kind of just sat down, and Bella sat down, and I rattled everything off as if they were my therapist,
Yeah.
and then just said, okay, so that's where the character's anger comes from. That's what's going through their mind when they're facing off with the different characters and with the dragon, etc. So when we come to things on the day, I'm not going to make specific reference to this or that, but you will know what is going through Georgia's mind
Mhm.
when there's specific things happening, and you'll know the backstory to exactly what this means to me as the director, as the writer. Largely it was just a case of me saying, this is what it is on paper, but this is what it really is to me.
Right.
And don't tell anyone the specifics, but
Yeah.
let's see if they get it.
Yeah, I love that. And that was kind of, I guess, going into one of the questions I had for you, because I find that sometimes writers will write dark material when they're happy, and then the opposite, like they'll write happy stuff when they're really not in a good place. So for you, is it that you're writing dark stuff when you're not really in a good place, or is it the opposite?
Honestly, I think it's kind of both.
Both.
Because I will say that I was writing dark stuff when I was in a dark place.
Oh,
The writing of this script for Villain, in its first iteration at least, was very much an exercise in catharsis. It
mhm.
was me just kind of being upset about the events that had led to its creation, but the real life events,
Mhm.
and me just kind of stewing on them, and then just thinking, I should write this down, and
Yeah.
me then just kind of writing it down in a basic form, and then thinking, could I just make this like a very grounded modern set drama of familial trauma and things like that? And I just, to be honest, I was just scared to, so I just said, no, I'm just going to make it a dragon, I'm going to make it Iron Age Britain. And so some of it was just hiding what
Mhm.
was obvious to me. And then when it came to actually making it, it was just a case of us trying to push ourselves. So going for things that we hadn't really done before, so that we would create an image on screen that we hadn't been able to up to this point. But yeah, in terms of mood when writing, to be honest, I kind of think a lot of my writing is quite negative. Not entirely, but I don't think there is a time when I write specifically downer stuff when I'm feeling great, or the opposite. I think there's just kind of a mixture in both. I always like to kind of have something that is somewhat serious, but when there is dialogue, I usually try and like to make the dialogue a bit humorous if I can, just to lighten things, and also because people are funny. People do talk in funny ways, even when bad things are happening to them or with them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I don't think you're alone, because I know there's a lot of writers who are writing a lot of dark stuff, especially during the pandemic, because everybody
Mm.
was locked down and there was just so much going on in the world, and so it was really easy to write something like that. And then once TV came back, it was like all these episodes were just like super horrible, and you're like, where is this coming
Yeah,
from? But it's like because of what was going on around us.
absolutely. Like I just came back from HollyShorts Film Festival, and did find that there was a lot of people processing trauma through
Okay.
shorts.
Yeah.
And it's always the case when you may go to a festival that there will be films about a mixture of positive and negative things.
Hmm.
But I will say that it does seem that within this last year there has been a lot of people kind of trying to get through the kind of bad state that that COVID and all of the kind of global issues, particularly in America, that
Hmm.
came up during the last couple of years. Everyone's feeling very well. Everyone's feeling kind of isolated, and at the same time, they're being thrown back into social things that they don't feel comfortable with, because there's kind of political isolations as well,
Hmm.
and that crosses family lines as well. There's people in families that are now less able to talk to one another. Um, there's a lot of stuff going on that is really driving people's psyches to want to kind of exercise those demons that have been building up since they first kind of got locked in their houses, or even earlier. And it's producing some great art. It really is.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. So at the time that you were filming this, was Bella already a pretty big star? And if so, how did that collaboration come about?
So at the time of casting, in particular, which was still in the UK's first lockdown, then we basically we spoke to our casting director, who again was a first time thing. We'd never had a casting director before. We'd usually just kind of hired people off of either word of mouth or even just online, things like that. But our casting director kind of put together a list of names, and Bella's was at the top. And we kind of just said, as much as we do love some of the names on there, if we can get Bella Ramsey, we should try and get Bella Ramsey. And
Yeah.
thankfully, we reached out to them, got them the script, and they liked it and said they'd like to come aboard. So that was great. But at the time, the main things that we had known Bella from were so like obviously Game of Thrones, but they'd also done some smaller films, like there's one called Resistance with Jesse Eisenberg. We also were aware of some of the more kind of family things that Bella had done. So doing things like The Worst Witch, and there's a Netflix animated series called Hilda. So we were very well aware of that, and we knew that they were going to be in the next season of His Dark Materials as well. But the big thing, obviously, is that we were absolutely unaware that Bella was going to be cast in The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And I don't know if at that point Bella was aware of it at all, or if it was something that came later. But in terms of when the world and ourselves found out about Bella's casting in The Last of Us, that was I think about 2 months after we shot, because it must have been probably around November, December 2020. And then we ended up getting very, very lucky with what would otherwise be kind of misfortunes, I would have thought. Largely how long the VFX took to make. So as I mentioned, we've got a dragon in this film, and we ended up getting that to be a VFX venture, which again was a first for us. We hadn't really done proper VFX before, and we weren't expecting it to be quite so expensive as it otherwise would be. But the way that we managed to make it affordable for us was by effectively saying, take your time, like deprioritize us amongst other better paying clients that you may have. Just keep doing it on evenings and weekends or whatever, and we'll take it whenever you can give it to us. And that ended up being a couple of years, basically.
Wow.
And but in that time, obviously, Bella's star rose dramatically with The Last of Us. And then by the time that we actually, because Catherine called Birdie also came out and did exceptionally well. And by the time we had started submitting to festivals, and it had actually been announced for some festivals, then The Last of Us was playing. And we actually played, I think our first festival was at the end of, it was either the end of April or the start of May, I think. And that was after The Last of Us had wrapped on TV. So everyone was fully abreast of how incredible Bella was. They were on everyone's TVs, on billboards all over the world. And then there we were, just starting our festival run. And thankfully having the world know how great of an actor our star was.
Yeah, I bet that was something to brag about.
It still is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's we're even beforehand. Like I remember each day that we rehearsed or each day that we filmed, then we just cut the camera and go, Jesus Christ, Bella's great.
Yeah.
And that also goes for Bella's fellow cast member, Isla Guy, who is also kind of on the rise as well. I forget the name of the project, but I know that she's going to be the lead in a kid detective series with Martin Freeman co-starring for Netflix.
Oh, wow.
And so that's great. And she's also been in like The Sandman. She's been in The Offenders and various other things, and was like Matilda on the West End.
Hmm.
And yeah, just but both actors were just absolutely incredible to watch, and we we definitely got things perfect with the casting, because
Hmm.
the two of them are just a joy to watch and could break our hearts or make us laugh with a moment's notice. And
Hmm.
yeah, and I'm really excited to see what both of them continue doing.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And so I had heard you said that it has been making its rounds at film festivals, and then it just recently screened at HollyShorts. So what has that experience been like for you, like watching your film on a big screen and then seeing other people react to it?
It's great, actually, especially because, as I say, it's taken so long to get here. We had like our first version of the film edited a couple of years ago. We were just like, it was basically the full film, but without the VFX, without the dragon and stuff. And I knew in my head what the dragon was going to be doing in each of these bits. So I could like kind of watch it and feel like it was almost complete.
Hmm.
And in all of that time, I've just been thinking, I can't wait for people to see this. Like, it's going to take so long, but I can't wait. And then I did wait. I just had to. And so the festivals that I've been to myself, because it has played quite a few festivals, and I've not managed to travel to all of them,
Hmm.
but I've traveled to a few across the states. I've been to the Coney Island Film Festival, which was the first place I saw other people watching it,
Hmm.
and it was incredibly well received there. And I'm an incredibly anxious person as it is. At each of the film festivals I have been to, then I kind of advertised online and gotten um, just company for the places where I'm in all on my own and whatever, and I've just started referring to them as emotional support humans. And it's great to just go there with some people who will keep me from feeling alone and like just kind of stand with me and chat with me, about like whatever films. And then when the film actually does play, I feel like it's weird. I always kind of have this anxiety that everyone's going to completely and utterly dismiss it. That I'm going to sort of say, here's my heart and soul, everyone. Hope you enjoy it. And they say, we don't.
Yeah.
But thankfully, that's not been the case at Coney Island and at Indie Shorts in Indiana, which I went to as well, and at HollyShorts just this past week in LA. All three places have introduced me to a lot of people who would congratulate me on the film and ask me lots of questions about it and talk to me about meaning. And yeah, it's generally just been wonderful to have something that I feel has been very much on my chest for years now, just kind of out there being experienced. And I, to be honest, I'm actually really looking forward to when it finally does get to the end of the festival run. I'm hoping we're able to just kind of put it online and show it to more people in every country. And I'm just excited to show people what we've created, because it's not just mine. It's um, my wife and producers. It's our cinematographer is incredible on it. The score by Joe Quayle is brilliant, and there's just so many people that collaborated on this short that made it what it is. And yeah, I'm very excited for it to actually get out. And yeah, I just kind of want to. I kind of want to see what everyone has to say about it, and at the same time, I don't want to know. But
Yeah.
that's art.
Yeah, I'm excited for people to see it as well. And you know what's funny? I don't know if you've noticed this. If you go on YouTube and you look up the trailer for it,
Mm.
all the comments are like, "Where can I see this? Where is it at? I
Yeah,
can't find it."
we get the same every time we post basically anything on Instagram. Any kind of tidbit or like festival announcement or things like that, we get various people messaging us or commenting, just saying, "When can I see it? I'm in this place. Where can I go?" And there's a lot of it that we just kind of have to say either, "Sorry, we already played there," or
Oh,
you'll have to wait until it's eventually online, which I don't know exactly when that's going to be, but it will be, I'm sure, promise.
okay. So you guys are gonna have to wait.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
it does seem like there is a kind of audience out there that's hungry for it. A lot of
Yeah,
Bella stands as well, which
sure.
we do occasionally see some Bella fans at the festival screenings as well, which is always lovely.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And then I did want to ask you too if you had any advice for young screenwriters or people who want to get into the filmmaking industry. You know, obviously, I know there's always a lot of questions of how do I start? Where do I begin? I don't know how to do this. What should I do?
There's a few different bits of advice that I would always give to people who ask me about getting started. Um, The first is quite simply that you will be bad before you are good. There's a quote from, of all things, Adventure Time, which is like,
Mm.
um, sort of sucking at something is the first step to being sort of good at something, and
Yeah.
it's true. So when you are starting, the first thing that you make is not going to be the one thing that you immediately skyrockets you. It's probably going to be not very good, but there is so much that you will learn from it. And then the next thing will be better, and then the next thing will be better. Every single thing you do is as much an exercise in art as it is just practice
Yeah.
and towards your eventual perfect, or not perfect because nothing ever is, but still. And so, yeah, the first thing I would say is just don't be afraid to make something bad. It's better than making nothing at all.
Hmm.
And the second thing I'd say, which is kind of along the same sort of lines, is to take the lesson that I've spent basically a decade learning and try and do as few roles as possible by yourself. So that means that if you're coming to a project and you're thinking that you're going to write it, direct it, produce it, edit it, act in it, do the costumes for it, do the VFX for it, do everything for it, then what I promise you is that you may be able to do all of those things, but you will do all of them pretty badly and none of them well. Whereas if you just focus your attention on the one thing that you really want to do, like if you are desperately wanting to direct, be a director and find other people who want to do those other jobs.
Yeah.
Like very much divide efforts so that everyone has a specific thing that they do better than you would if you have a million things to do. So yeah, basically make sure that you are focusing your efforts on something specific that you want to do rather than broadly doing everything.
Mhm.
And also do not be afraid of your starting efforts to be bad. Beyond that, the same advice that many people will give is just, and this is kind of tying in with the don't worry about being bad thing, is just make more stuff. Like I say, it's practice. So make stuff on your phone, make stuff on crappy 1990s handheld camcorders or whatever. Just make stuff. And each time you will learn something and you will get better. And then at some point you'll have something that you'll think, this is something I actually want to show the world. And I think that they will respond to. And yeah, it wouldn't have gotten to that point if you hadn't made all the stuff that you started with.
Yeah, that's good. So just start it, just do it. Because I feel like it's so easy to go, well, I'll just wait until I get better, or I'll just wait until this. And then it's like,
Yeah,
you'll be waiting forever.
absolutely. Like that, the hardest part, I'll put it in kind of a metaphor, is that so I go running quite a lot, and the hardest part is always just getting out of the door.
Hmm.
Like if I have got my running stuff on and I leave the house, the actual run, it may be difficult, but I know that I'll do it and it will be fine. But if I am inside the door and there's a bit of my head that says, Not today. There is still absolutely a chance that I just will not do it. And so if you can just make yourself start, just do like the main, like stepping out of the door and getting in, like getting to it. That is always the part that you just need to get over, and then the rest of it will just kind of happen.
Yeah, exactly. I wholeheartedly agree with that. And then lastly, I did want to ask you, are there any current projects or anything that you're working on that you can talk about?
Just kind of things that I'm writing at the moment, actually. So there's a few things, because where I mentioned the Amazon thing that I've been on for like the last majority of the year, then that didn't afford me a lot of time to do any writing, and now I've actually got a bit of freedom to do so. One of them is a feature of Villain. Effectively, it's not it's not a feature version of the short itself. Rather, it's a sequel to the events of the short, so set in the same world, same characters, but it's very much an answer to the question, what happens next?
Oh, okay.
And so that's something I'm working on, writing out, fleshing out properly at the moment, which is going quite well. And otherwise, there's a few projects that I'm excited about that I will also be working on, just kind of as and when I have time availability. And those include one which is a true story about a young man who washed ashore in just kind of a tiny seaside town in England, and was then discovered by some mental hospital staff to have a great gift in playing the piano. And so then there was this massive rush of urgency on finding his identity and who was this incredible pianist that no one knew the identity of, and he couldn't talk and things like that. And I kind of have a story where I want to explore someone who is close to that person, someone who's working at the hospital, who attaches the value of their own life to the sudden fame that this patient gets. And so that's another one, probably going to be called Piano Man. And finally, this is one that I don't have as much of a clear idea of exactly what the story is going to be yet. But so there's a concept that I've been working on about how teleportation, the invention of teleportation, would pretty much overnight ruin the world's economy. And to set a basically a teleportation murder mystery where people are trying to stop the technology from being released by using it to try and take out the people who've created it.
Interesting.
So, yeah, teleportation murder mystery, mute pianist washing ashore, and a kind of medieval dragon epic, I guess.
Yeah, so your brain is just all over the place right now.
It kind of is, yeah. There's a lot of stuff going through my head, and trying to get some of it down on paper and then some of it to screen.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's the life of a creative, right?
See what I can do.
Yeah, well, that sounds interesting. I can't wait to see all of that.
Me neither. I'd really love to be sooner rather than later. But yeah, the big drawback, I think, with my visit to LA was simply that when I booked it, I was thinking, I'm going to go and have a few meetings, see if I can get things developed. But then I realised by the time that I got there, to do that, I'd have to cross picket lines.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, and get through a hurricane.
Bad timing,
Earthquake.
but yeah, yeah. I mean, talking about bad timing, going through being in LA during its first hurricane in however long, and there also being an earthquake competing for attention.
So I told him before that was like California is just not representing itself right now, and I'm hurt by that because I'm from California. Well, I'm glad you made it back all in one piece and that you had a good time at HollyShorts.
I definitely did.
Okay, well, I'm gonna let you go, but before I do you have any social media that you want to put out there so people can follow you and follow along with your projects?
Sure. So my My personal handle on everything is just at Tehnsuko. That's Tehsuko. And anything involving the short with Bella, it's called Villain, and the handle on all social media is just Villain the Film.
Got it. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up this interview. Thank you, Sparky, for joining me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Really good time talking to you. And congratulations on your film.
Right, thank you. It's great to get it finally out there to the world.
Yeah, and I hope to be bringing you back sometime when these other films come out, these teleportation films, the
Absolutely,
Piano Man.
Yeah, let's see how they turn out.
Yeah, maybe I might not see you for like 10 years, but
might be a while of development, but
I know.
Yeah, we'll do what we can.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll be waiting for it. So thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, I'll let you go. You have a good day.
Right. Bye then.
Bye.